Right then, hello people. Welcome to our program. This is Milad Rasaimanesh, the Central Committee of Ex-Muslim in Scandinavia spokesperson. Very welcome to our program. As you guys most probably know, France is bleeding again. A couple of days ago, there was the student. There was a student in France attacked his own teacher and chopped his head off, because the teacher was showing some of the Charlie Hebdo cartoons at the class. And such a horrible incident has brought so many issues, like old issues, but still unsolved, to the media. There are so many people talking about the freedom of expressions and insulting Muslim values. Today, we're going to discuss the threat of Islamism to Western societies. And we're trying to answer this question, like how we can overcome Islamism in Europe, North America, and somehow in Middle East. Today, we have a very special guest. Pretty sure most of you guys know our guest today, Yasmine Mohammed, a very well-known activist, is here to have a quick talk about the recent incident happened in France and the issues I just said people are talking these days about. Hello there, Yasmine. If you hear me, I would like to thank you for accepting on my invitation and welcome you to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Milad. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you very much. Great to have you around. All right. No need to explain what happened these days. I'm pretty sure you follow everything's happened. What do you think about this current situation we're experiencing? It's not a new issue. We know that Charlie Hebdo was attacked in 2015, and some of the best cartoonists was murdered during those terrorist attacks by the Islamists. But it's happening again. The news, actually, the recent news is some of the governments, Islamic governments like Erdogan and the government of Kuwait said they're gonna boycott the French products because the President Macron somehow supported the freedom of speech, the freedom of expressions in France. I can see we have a new guest also. His dog's also around. So what
got in the room?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Corona time. I think it's a new culture, having a live program. So the pets come in and the children come in, and it's not the first time actually for me. So it's perfectly fine. He also will come. Right. So what do you think about the recent incident actually in Europe? How you see the world these days?
Well, first of all, you use the term Islamism, and I'm just going to speak on that a little bit. I personally find that there is, I know that there is no religion called Islamism. There's no Quran for Islamism. There's no prophet for Islamism. Islamism is not a religion. The religion is Islam. And the religion itself is what is requiring or what is asking Muslims to spread it politically. So when people try to separate between Islam and Islamism, what they're saying is Islam is the religion and Islamism is the political ideology. But that's a false differentiation, because the religion of Islam, as you know, you're from Iran, which is under Sharia, even though supposedly Shias don't believe in, they believe actually in a separation of mosque and state in a way that Sunni Muslims do not, which are 90% of Muslims. So Islam encourages that political expansion of the religion. Mm-hmm. So it's not a separate ideology. However, I will make a distinction between Muslims and Islamists. So an Islamist is an individual like somebody from Hizb ut-Tahrir. I can see you've got in the comment section, you've got Deborah, who used to be a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir, and she was married to an Iraqi member of Hizb ut-Tahrir. And he is an Islamist. Majid Nawaz was an Islamist. He was also a member of Hizb ut-Tahrir. People that are part of the Muslim Brotherhood, they are Islamists. So there are certain Muslims that will say, I choose to spread Islam as a political ideology. And there are some Muslims who choose not to do that. So there is a distinction there. So I just wanted to say that. As far as the big picture, again, I'm going to bring up the fact that you're from Iran because I think that's where it all started. I think this all started in Iran. When the Islamic Revolution happened, which was through the support of the West, as we know, through the support of the liberals in the West, when the Islamic Revolution happened in Iran, that scared a lot of Muslim majority countries into submission. So if you look at the pictures from the 60s and from the early 70s in Egypt, Libya, Afghanistan, Iran, you name it, any country in the Muslim majority world, you'll see that people were living freely. People were like, secularization was a thing, progress was a thing, feminism was a thing. It was all happening. We were all progressing in the same way that the West was progressing, not at the same pace, but of course there was progress happening in all those countries. When the Islamic Revolution happened, it scared the governments, especially the monarchies, because we have a lot of those in the Islamic world, it scared them into submission because they said, well, these jihadis, these Muslim extremists, they're going to bomb us, they're going to kill us, they're going to overthrow us. So we have to make sure that we appease them. So in Egypt, we had Hosni Mubarak, who was the president for like over 30 years. He was appeasing the Muslim Brotherhood. And so the Muslim Brotherhood, who are Islamists, just got bigger and bigger and stronger until they, in the end, almost took over the country if it wasn't for the people revolting against them. But I mean, you see that happening in Turkey today too, right? So the Islamists will get bigger and bigger and they'll get stronger and stronger as long as the other Muslims are not standing up against them.
Got a question. Before actually we just move on and talk about the current situation in the world. As you mentioned, like before the revolution in Iran, for example, we didn't have like that much like a radical like Islamists trying to, how to say, have like a sort of like an Islamic state and force everyone to practice Islamic rituals. Islam was there, but it was not political. When we use the term Islamism, we're trying to separate about the like a personal belief, which everyone's, I think, should be free to believe in every sort of nonsenses. I'm atheist, but in case like someone want to be Muslim or like believe in any sort of God, I think we're supposed to respect those people. And when we're talking about Islamism, we're talking about a specific political movement. We're trying to use Muslim as a political tools to stay specific people in power politically. I'm talking. So it's, yeah, you're absolutely right. The Islam itself has so many problems. Yeah, it's just, it's just provoking the Muslims to be somehow attacking the atheists, attacking women who don't wear hijab and stuff like that. But in year 2020, we're talking about a specific movement with specific political ideology that is very, actually, I would say, dangerous for the people, for modern values. What do you think about that?
Well, I definitely agree with that. And I think that it has expanded throughout the Muslim majority world for a long time. And then it spread out into the West. So it actually, 9/11 is an example of that. So it got bigger and bigger. They got more and more empowered through, the Mujahideen in Russia and getting the CIA support. And so then they ended up feeling powerful enough to attack New York City. And they just kept on spreading. And I think that's really what we're seeing in France today, is a continuation of that spread. So when you ask me about the events that's happening today, I think that the way that the president of France is reacting is the very first time that any president of any country has stood up and said, okay, enough. You guys have been spreading for long enough now. You've had your day in the sun, and now it's time for us to push back. So I think that what he's doing is wonderful. I see a lot of people complaining that he's going into these mosques and that he's finding weapons, and they're finding, videos of beheadings and all sorts of horrible things. and they're complaining. They're saying, "Oh, but these Muslims and their civil liberties." Well, they're breaking the law right now, right? They are encouraging violence. The thing is there's thousands and thousands of mosques in France. If the French authorities are going into just a handful, they're going into just a few of those mosques and Muslim societies, and they are, whatever it is, they're finding all of the, the violence and the weapons in there. They're doing their job.
The question would be, first of all, I mean, this program is online, like, so people watching this program through Facebook, YouTube, Twitch channel, or Instagram, please feel free to like express yourself, like raise questions. We definitely see your comments, and we go through the things that you post. Then the question would be, there in Europe, there's like a majority of other nationalities like living. I mean, in Canada, for example, you were living, there was like a Muslim communities, Chinese communities, and some other countries in Europe also. But we see this sort of radicalization, really common among Muslims, and like Muslim majority. Why is that? Is it because like the ideology of Islam is sort of aggressive, or you think there are some, how to say, political movement behind it? You just mentioned there's like so many mosques, for example, in Europe or like in France. How you evaluate the reason why? I mean, you coming also from a Muslim family, as far as I know. Why is that? Why are Muslims so aggressive against the modern values, you think?
Because it's against Islam. Because all Muslims are taught to hate anything that is against Islam. Muslims are taught to have Islamic values, and Islamic values are counter to Western values. And so, you have to hate it. You have to fight against it. That's just the way it is. The Quran,
hate sort of ideology also exists in some other like cultures or like ethics, I would say, like Hindu, for example, living. They also have some sort of like, how to say, ideology that you're supposed to like protect your religion, and in case someone insults your holy things, then you're supposed to like attack and stuff. But we only see this sort of radicalization, as I said, only among Muslims. Is it only because of religion, you think?
Well, when we're talking about the Boston bombers, they're from Russia. The 9/11 hijackers, they're from Egypt. They're from Saudi Arabia. The man who killed Vincent van Gogh's grandson, Theo van Gogh, was from Morocco. All of these people from all of these different countries, what is the one thing that they have in common? It's their religion. It's the religion that is telling them that they need to do this, that they're being brainwashed from children, being told this is the right thing to do. This is the good thing to do. If you want to go to heaven, you have to be a jihadi. Then you're going to reach the highest level of heaven, and everybody will celebrate you. In Palestine, when a jihadi kills an Israeli, they pay that person's family a monthly stipend just to say thank you. Thank you for being a jihadi. They go around and they have parties and they give out candy and they celebrate. I don't know if you were in a Muslim majority country after 9/11, but the celebrations were through the roof everywhere. It was like, a big, huge party. Everybody felt so happy and so empowered that Islam is winning, that Allah is winning, Allah is behind us. It's the same reason why when ISIS rose up in Iraq and Syria, all of a sudden you saw people from Germany, from France, from the UK, from Canada, from America, from all of these free Western countries where these kids were going to university and they came from middle-class homes. They weren't, desperate kids on the street. And they all burned their passports and they joined ISIS. What did they do that for? These kids don't all have terrorist tendencies. These kids aren't all psychopaths. But these kids were all raised with this ideology that tells them this is how to be a good person. To die fi sabilillah, to die for Allah. That is how you be a good Muslim, and that is how you reach the highest levels of
Yeah.
heaven.
One more question, since you have like a decent knowledge about the Islamic rituals, is the question that our dish is rising. I mean, do you think like we can have some sort of like a liberal Islam? I know so many people, specifically like Iranians, they're trying to have like a new version of Islam, which is like very friendly regarding homosexuality. It's perfectly fine with blasphemy, and I mean, they say it's fine women not having hijab and these sort of things. Can we like liberalize Islam, you think, or it's just impossible?
Well, I think that Muslim individuals can try their hardest to maintain their identity as a Muslim, but then also live according to the values of this century. So Muslims can do that. Individual people can do that. As far as the religion itself changing, I don't think that that's very possible. I think that it happened with Christianity because there's a New Testament and because they have a pope and they have a top-down they have a leadership. And it happened with Jewish people too. They were able to have Jewish reformers now where they're more progressive and they're not like the Orthodox Jewish people. And quite often Jewish people are atheists. Probably most Jewish people are atheist. So it's not to say that it's impossible to happen with Islam. It's possible, but because of the way that Islam is structured, well, it's not structured. It's kind of like, it's like the BLM movement or like Antifa. It doesn't have a leader. People think, oh, we're going to kill bin Laden and then everything's going to be okay. Yeah. No. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of bin Ladens out there. It doesn't matter if you kill the leader of Al-Qaeda or the leader of ISIS. That's not going to stop the terrorists. That's not going to stop Islamic terrorism because it's not structured in that way. It's not structured like a Mexican drug lord or something. No, it's not like that. It's an ideology that is in all people's heads that are all over the world, and they are raising their kids with that ideology every single day. So the only way to counter it is to counter the ideology. So to counter those ideas.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be my last question, like what we're supposed to do regarding these Islamic barbarism, I would say, or like Islamism threats. The other question would be, as you mentioned, there are like so many mosques or like seminars, taking place in Europe. I'm living in Stockholm in Sweden. The Islamic regime of Iran, for example, they got like two mosques, like two big mosques in Stockholm. So when it's like the Ashura, which is like a ceremony for Shia people, there are like a bunch of people at the very center of town. And it's unbelievable. You really think you're living in like the holy city of Mashhad in Iran or the Qom. The Muslims like dominate somehow. The Shia Muslims dominates the city. And it's true with with other countries in UK, in Germany, in France. There are like so many mosques and like institutes. They have seminars, they have imams and stuff. The question is, who actually like financially sponsor these people, and why they do so? I mean, there are countries like Saudi Arabia, Islamic regime of Iran, Turkey, Erdogan, and somehow the European governments that pays for these people to have mosques, run seminars, and they have their own ceremonies. Why is that? Why they pay? What's the purpose behind it?
Well, that's secularism, right? It's freedom of religion. And so they believe that, that they should support all of these different people from different religious backgrounds. And so that's why a lot of the taxes go towards building mosques or go towards building Islamic schools, because they're also going towards building churches and they're also going towards building Catholic schools. And so they believe, just in fairness, we're going to also build schools and places of worship for other religions as well. So that's where that money is coming from, the government, but it's also coming from Islamic governments. Saudi Arabia funds a lot of Islamic schools and a lot of mosques all over the world. And Iran is doing the same. And Iran and Saudi Arabia are kind of having like a little competition where they're both seeing who can build more mosques, who can build more schools, because they want to make sure that they create more people that are following their ideology.
Yeah, it's the funny things, like, just sorry for interrupt, but I would like to point out, I was just like reading an article saying like, if the Saudi Arabia has the Mecca, and on a specific day all the Muslims supposed to visit Medina and Mecca for the a ritual, Islamic rituals, we have the Imam Hussein, and we supposed to the 14th day of the 40th day after the death of Hussein is called Arba'in, and there's a big ceremony. You got no clue. They spend so much money in Iraq, and they advertise for it all around the world, and they say this is the Shia sort of ceremony. They want to try to put it in front of the Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's somehow funny, but at the same time, we see there are so many people living in poverty, specifically after these sanctions. And where the money come from? Why the Western countries just let them do so? You see, sorry, I just want to point out what's happening in Iran at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you're saying. Yeah, they have that competition going on between the two of them. I mean, I'm happy that the two of them hate each other. The last thing in the world we want is for all Muslims to be united. I'm glad that this ummah is so fractured. It's a joke how they like to pretend that they are one big solid family. They're not. They don't care about each other. Look at the Chinese Muslims, how they're being treated. Pakistan is supporting their mistreatment. Saudi Arabia is supporting their mistreatment. A list of 37 countries or something, most of them are Muslim majority countries, where they're all supporting China. There's no such thing as ummah. They don't care about each other. The reason why they're reacting so strongly over these cartoons in France is because they have all been raised to get angry and to defend their prophet. That's what it's all about. They're not defending each other as other Muslims. They are defending themselves and their own, hoping that they can look good in Allah's eyes. Oh, look, Allah, I wrote a bunch of Facebook messages against Macron. So, please let me into heaven. So that's what they're trying to do. It's individualistic. It's not at all. There's no such thing as an ummah. It's garbage. They wish it was.
Yeah, it seems these, specific Islamic governments in Middle East, they're trying to somehow be the leader of the Muslims all around the world, and somehow Islamism. That's my personal idea. Islamism is a tool for them to be in power. No one really likes the Islamic regime of Iran. There are a bunch of mullahs. They were coming from a very poor class of the society, very uneducated, and now they got everything. They have the whole country, and it's over 40 years. It's true with the Saudi government and Erdogan in Turkey and so many other idiots.
But it's fear. It's fear.
Yeah.
What did the Iranian government do, though, is they kill people, willy-nilly. So people are too afraid to stand up to them. And this is the thing that I try to explain. It's hard to explain this to people in the Western world, but now it's a little bit easier. So they would always say to me, so why are the moderate Muslims staying quiet? Why aren't the moderate Muslims fighting against all of these Islamists and extremists? And I say to them, because they're jihadis. Because if the moderate Muslims stand up and they try to speak up against them, they're going to get their heads cut off. And they say, yeah, but they need to be strong and they need to be loud. And I agree, they need to be strong and they need to be loud. But the fact that they're quiet doesn't necessarily mean that they agree with the jihadis. It just means that they're scared. And now you can kind of see a parallel with that in the Western world, because people in the West are too scared to speak up against the woke. I don't know how big of a deal that is for you in Sweden, but in America, it's a really big deal with the woke culture. And people are losing their jobs and people are, it's a big deal. People are too scared to speak up against woke culture. So now they understand that just because they're quiet It doesn't mean that they agree with it. It just means that they're too scared for their jobs, for their friends, for their families, for whatever different reasons.
That's a very fair point. The thing is, as you see in the comments, it's like, the world is quiet about the things happening in the world. I mean, when I say the world, I mean like a Western societies. They let these things happen and they still silent, both in Middle East, in Western societies. And
it's cowardice. It doesn't mean they agree. It just means that they're scared.
But I mean, I'm talking about the government. The government are kind of silent, like, and there are some sort of like movements, I mean, political movements in Europe saying like, if you try to like criticize Islam, they always say like you're Islamophobic and you're racist. So basically, it's really tough to start like talking about Islam and like Islamism in Western societies, and that's the consequence of the silence. So the question would be, why you think they somehow, when I say they, I mean the European policies, and European politicians, why they somehow following the policy that justifies Islamism in Western societies and in Middle East? Why they somehow stand on the side of the Islamists rather than the people?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? So why are they supporting people that don't share the same values as them? If you say that you're a feminist, then why are you, like Swedish politicians, when they go to Iran, why do they put a hijab on their head? Why aren't they standing up and saying, nope, we're feminists and we disagree with this, and this is modesty culture and this is rape culture, and but no, they won't stand up. So is it because of diplomatic relations? Is it because of money? Is it because of fear? Is it, I don't know what the reason is. There could be many different reasons why. I think that sometimes the reason is that sometimes they actually, they have a shared hate for the Western world. And again, with Iran, we saw this happen. The reason why this Islamic revolution was able to happen was because they had the support of the left and the far left, right? They had the support of a lot of communists, and they had a shared hate for Western values, a shared hate for America. And so sometimes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But then very soon, the Islamists will turn on them. But I guess it's just arrogance, it's ignorance. I don't know what it is. But you're right. It's very common that whenever you try to open your mouth to speak up against the atrocities happening under Islam, the atrocities that are occurring, you get called Islamophobic. And the result of that is that, you could have girls like in the UK, thousands and thousands of girls were raped in rape gangs for years and years. Nobody wanted to speak up against it because if you're a journalist, you would lose your job. If you're a politician, you would lose your job. So they just let it happen. They just let these girls continue to be raped. We know now, we've just learned that one of the security guards when the Manchester bombing happened with the Ariana Grande concert, the security guard said, I was too scared to say anything. I had a feeling this guy was shifty. There was something about him, but I didn't want to say anything because I was afraid they would call me racist. So he stayed quiet, and then 22 people died. Now, I'm not blaming him because he was just an 18-year-old kid, and this is the society he lives in, and there's this constant pressure, racist, Islamophobic, bigot, so people are too scared to open their mouth. But the consequences of that are horrible. Like the results, you see, jihadis will keep you from criticizing Islam by cutting off your head, right? Yeah. Islamists will stop you from criticizing Islam by calling you an Islamophobe. It's the exact same thing. They both have the exact same goal. They just have two different ways of getting there. Just like Islamists and jihadis, both of them want to spread Islam, but they just want to do it in different ways.
Yeah, the thing is, in Europe, specifically after 2015, when the Syria war happened, and there was like a big number of refugees came to the European countries, the far right start to rising, and those people trying to use Islam to provoke hate feeling against the immigrants, against the refugees. Just happened what happened in UK regarding this Brexit, and who is the president of US? The far right is rising. So what I can see is like using Islam to hating refugees. It's a political movement currently in the Europe. So if you really want to overcome the like Islamists who are a threat for the values in Westerns, we also have to be face to face with these far right wings, because they also, I mean, in my personal belief, they also are part of a problem. They justify Islamism. They're like the underside of the coin. They like twin brothers, so they stand.
They're the same. They're the same thing. They when we are fighting against Islamists, or when we're fighting against Muslim extremists, they are our right wing. That's what people don't understand. That's why it makes our heads spin when we see them aligned with the left wing in the West, because it's like, no, you don't understand. Those are the conservatives. What's wrong with you? How come you don't see that? How come you recognize when they're Christian conservatives, but you don't recognize when they're Muslim conservatives? So I hear what you're saying, and of course that's true. And those people who are going to try to drum up hate for Muslims, they hate us too, even if we're ex-Muslim, it doesn't matter. They just hate people who are not like them. Mm-hmm. And that kind of hate is universal. It's going to happen everywhere, and it's going to happen all the time. And there's nothing that we can, there's no way that we're going to eradicate that. It's like trying to eradicate sexism. You can't. You can try to, you create policies and you speak out against it and you educate and you do everything that you can. But unfortunately, that's just the human condition. Humans are racist, humans are sexist, humans are, a lot of ists. And so we're always going to have those issues. But we cannot bite our tongues and not speak about Islam, because then other people might take what we're saying and use it against other people. Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's not fair to us. We can't do that, because when we are silenced, then it's exactly what I just spoke about, a minute ago. When we're silenced over atrocities, more atrocities happen. In the UK, when they were too scared to speak out about the rape gangs, more and more girls got raped. That's what's going to happen if you stay silent. So we have to speak up, but we have to constantly be pushing from the right and pushing from the left and trying to maintain, a nuanced perspective. There's nothing we can do other than that. But I won't be silenced because somebody might take my words and use them for their anti-Muslim bigotry. I can't control everybody in the world, but I have to continue to do what I'm doing. This is the same kind of criticism that comes up with Jewish people when they want to criticize Israel. People say, oh, you can't criticize Israel because it's our state. And if you criticize our state, then you're going to encourage people to be anti-Semites. Well, they have to criticize their state. Can you imagine Americans being told you're not allowed to criticize your country? Or, you have to be able to criticize your government, and they're not going to be silenced. They shouldn't be silenced just because there are anti-Semites out there.
Yeah. One, actually, before I just go to jump to the other topic, try to keep your comments as short as you can so I can show it on the screen. This is a very awful example. I cannot show things. Yeah. Try to keep them short. All right. I would like to talk about the fear, right? I do remember it was 2016, I guess. And here in Stockholm, we were trying to have the parade, for the homosexual things. And we were just trying to join the the last day, the Pride. So we were trying to expose, try to support the LGBTs from Iran, Afghanistan, and some other countries in Middle East. And I do remember there were some people who were somehow they were atheists and they were somehow supporting the things we were doing, but they were so scared of coming to the Pride because they were saying there's a chance that they might have a terrorist attack, a bomb go off or something. So they prefer not to come. I would like to talk about this concept, fear. that these Islamists trying to provoke in society? You, as an ex-Muslim who don't wear hijab and always, like, are very loud and clear criticizing Islam, don't you scared about these Islamists attacking you, something like that? And
Yes, of course.
and how you recommend to other girls, to other people, to other ex-Muslims, what they're supposed to do? I'd like you to talk about your own experience, and then tell me what we're supposed to do regarding this fear Islamists trying to provoke in society.
The thing is I can only speak about myself. I don't know, like, my situation was very unique. So I was forced into a marriage with a member of Al-Qaeda. So I was married to a jihadi. I wore niqab. I covered every inch of my body in black, even wore the gloves and the thick socks. And I had paper taped up my windows so that nobody could see in the house. And I didn't get sunshine, and I was depressed, and I was being beaten by him. And I lived the extreme of Islam. And when you feel that boot on your head for as long as I did, you eventually reach a point where you're like, I don't fucking care. I don't. I'm done. I don't care anymore. I'm finished. I've been too scared for too long. And now I have to find my courage. I have to find my voice. Initially, it was for my daughter, to protect her. And for 15 years, I was quiet. I didn't do any activism. I didn't write my book. I didn't have a Twitter account. I didn't do anything. But eventually, you have enough. I think everybody will be able to relate to that feeling. Like somebody who I spoke to, a friend of mine, was saying that he was in the closet, like he was gay, but he never wanted to admit that he was gay. He was so not wanting to admit that he was gay that he was actually homophobic, which is pretty common. But he eventually reached a point that he just had enough. He'd had enough of the self-hate. He'd had enough of the lies. He'd had enough of the double life, that he just didn't fucking care anymore. He's like, if I lose my friends, I lose my friends. If I lose my family, I lose my family. I lose my job, I lose my job. I'm done. I don't care. And so that's really what happened with me. Is, sure, fear will keep people in line for a certain amount of time, but eventually they will have enough. And again, I'm going to refer to Iran as a perfect example of that. Yeah. For 40 years, they stayed under the rule of Sharia. And now look what's happening. They've had enough. Finally, the Iranian people have had enough. Fear can only control people for so long. And then eventually they're going to get sick of it and they're not going to care. In my organization, Free Hearts, Free Minds, we support ex-Muslims living in Muslim majority countries. I'm constantly hearing from women in Saudi Arabia telling me that they're going to try and escape, and they say, I don't care if I die. And they really don't care. They say, if I die, it's better than this life I'm living now. It's worth a risk. I'm not going to live this life anymore. I'm done. And I understand where they're coming from. I'm grateful that I was in Canada, so I didn't have to go through anything compared to what they have to go through. But I understand that feeling of just being scared for so long that you've just had enough.
Yeah. I think you, Yasmin, are very inspirational for so many, specifically girls and women in like Islam-stricken countries. Well done indeed. One last question before we end the seminar. What do you think? I mean, how you think we can overcome the threat of Islamism in Europe? What's the solution, you think?
Well, I think that what's happening in France right now, I think, is a really good start. And I love that so many countries in the EU have spoken up in support of France. I mean, even the Canadian Prime Minister spoke up in support of France. So there is a lot of, and I know, Trump and Boris Johnson from the UK haven't said anything. But I know that when push comes to shove, of course, they will be standing behind France. So this is what needs to happen. There needs to be a pushback. Nobody has pushed back. right? We've just let this train keep going and going and going and going. Turkey has, enough now. Iran, enough now. Pakistan, enough. All of you, enough. And it's time for there to be some pushback against all of the extremism that they are encouraging and all of the terrorism that they are supporting. So, I'm happy to see this. I loved seeing the projections of the Charlie Hebdo cartoons all over the buildings in France.
Yeah.
Because to me, I feel like that's the best response. You are showing that you are strong in your values without violence, which is exactly, what makes me proud of the French people. Like, that's exactly how you should be responding to that. Say, nope, this is our country. These are our values, and we will stand firm and we will stand loud, but we are not going to be violent like you.
Yeah, true. Actually, as I said, like at the very first of the program, like some Islamic countries, they said like they're gonna boycott like a French products. Erdogan and like some other people somehow. They're not really happy with the position of Macron, and I think it's about time if we support France at this time, if we support the policy be followed by President Macron. That's the way that's the way, in my point of view, to fight against Islamism in Europe and in Middle East. France at the moment is in front line, and somehow we need to support their policy. All right, this is like a 45 minutes program we had so far. I think we can end the program by now. If there is anything missing, or if you want to summarize your talk, the floor is yours. You have enough time to give us a conclusion of the program.
Somebody said, be sure the Iranian people will win soon and this government will fall. I 100% agree with that person. Yeah, definitely. Iranian people, I mean, they make me so proud.
There's a big movement against the government, or sooner or later, it's just a matter of time. They're gonna downfall anyway. I mean, I was just saying, like, I was reading an article the other day. It's like, only Iranian women. We don't need the majority of the people. Only like a specific percentage of Iranian women can downfall these Islamists.
Yeah.
So believe in Iranian women. The next revolution is going to be a women's revolution. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So anything to add up? Would you like to summarize your talk? Because we are at the end of the program anyway.
Well, I would like to say that, yes, I think it's hopefully not just the Iranian women, but women all over the rest of the Muslim majority world and all over the world in general will always stand up for their rights. So I'm happy to see that. And so as abysmal as things are right now, as dark as things may look, I think it's really important to pay attention to those positive rays of light and to stay hopeful, because things are progressing, even though it doesn't look that way sometimes. And I would encourage everybody to pick up my book Unveiled, because I think that my life is an example of that. There were so many times in my life where I just felt like this is the end. There's nothing more I can do. I have nothing more to fight with, but somehow you find the strength to keep going, and you find the strength to fight, and you persevere in the end. So yeah, I would just say stay hopeful. And
one last question. I know it's Corona time and like so many seminars and events being canceled or postponed, but do you have any like a seminars or like events in early future would like to talk about, so people would know and attend?
Actually, I have quite a few in the pipeline, but none have been confirmed just because of COVID. Actually, I'll be going close to you in Norway. Ex-Muslims of Norway have invited me to come speak, but they have a quarantine requirement, so I won't be able to go because I'm not going to stay in Norway for 2 weeks. So,
yeah, but fingers crossed. Actually, hopefully, after we overcome the COVID, we're gonna see some of the lectures or like seminars or events like being run by you. Yasmine Mohammed, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for talking
Thank
to me.
you.
I'm hoping to
Thank
have
you to
you.
everybody
Yeah.
for coming too.
Yeah, I'm hoping actually we're gonna have you again in our programs, and fingers crossed for the things that you do, and fingers crossed for all the fights of ex-Muslim against Islamism in Europe, Middle East, and rest of the world. Thank you very much, and have a nice one. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.